Welcome everyone, this is Gwydion, and today I'm going to walk through Across a Thousand Dead Worlds, which is a horror space exploration game. It can be played solo and it can be played also with up to 5 players. This is 446 pages. Obviously, I'm walking through the PDF. You can also buy the hard copy on Drive Through RPG. I'll put up a link to that below, and I'll also show that at the end of the video. I'm going to try to keep this to a half an hour if possible. So I am going to skip a few sections just because this is massive and I can't do it justice. So we'll focus on kind of the opening, character creation, the overall rules, how to play the game, and then a little bit of the antagonists. I'll just kind of flip through that. And then finally, Karum Station, which is kind of the base. I'm going to skip the running the game and leave the GM section for you all to explore yourself. So let's start our flip through. So you can see in the credits, obviously Alex T, as always, with Blackoath Entertainment, but a number of different artists he works with and graphic designers. All right, love the art. So obviously very sci-fi theme and dives right into a little bit more of, instead of just an outline of the game and what it is, you're kind of jumping right into role playing, and it's almost like a manual, as if you are already immersed in the game, which I personally love. Talks a little bit about the universe, Karum Station, and who were the art. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Arcade, and there isn't much known about them, so it's it's a word that is it's it means ancient. That's what I'm trying to say in Scottish Gaelic. So let's keep going and creating your deep diver. So that's what your character is called. So a cool character sheet, definitely sci-fi theme, little spaceshipy theme. I love it. And then you'll go into step by step. And again, it's more of almost like a manual of you, instead of character creation and being a little bit more kind of like a true rule book. I like this because this is more like you being given a manual of kind of how to create something. So I think that's a really cool twist. Primary attributes. So these are going to look really familiar to you for anyone that has played another, some of the large tabletop role playing games that are out there. So I won't go through those. You do have some secondary abilities, or attributes, excuse me. So these are maybe just a bit different. Luck, many of you have seen that type of attribute, and that allows you to re-roll any, it looks like any damage roll or failed check. Stamina, stress, so that's cool. Some of you that have played Alien may be familiar with that type of mechanic, but you can get stressed in this game. And then wounds. There isn't, I don't believe, a hit points per se, but you have wounds, and you can only sustain 3 wounds before you die. Skills, so these range from 0 to 15, and the way the mechanics work is you will be doing skill checks. You're going to roll a d20 and add your points in whatever skill you're rolling for against it, and you just need a 20 or higher to succeed. You'll begin character creation with 70 points to distribute with no more than 10 in a single roll. So you can see some of the types of skills, and there's quite a few. Just kind of mention a few: medical aid, range combat, resolve, science, stealth, of course. I love stealth, and technology. So using technological devices, comms, patching up systems. And then talent. You have 5 talent slots, and each time a PC gains a level, you'll be able to roll once on the talent table. Talents are earned each time you gain a level. There's also a D100. I love all the random tables. So a D100, you can roll 4 talent types if you'd like. And I suspect you can just select them as well. Backgrounds, you can roll a D10. And it says also roll or pick a background. So you can be an algae farmer, blue collar worker, celebrity, data miner, and they'll give you just a little bit of a bonus. So looks like either or. So you can, for example, if you're a data miner, you can get a +1 in science or technology. Some more backgrounds, life-changing events. So this is, gives you a little bit more of, who are you and what's happened to you? How'd you earn your place? This is a D4. So again, you can roll, or if something strikes you, just pick it. Drive. So what keeps you going and what's really personal that most characters won't share with each other. So it could be about wealth, power, fame, wanderer's lust, adrenaline junkie. So again, a lot of different drives to pick from. Mannerisms. You might have some quirks. So what type of mannerisms define you? Nervous tick. I think that's cool. So when the pressure starts to accumulate, it sounds like you do have a specific nervous tick that comes about. Final details, you have what are called DC or Drake coins that reflect money. And then it talks a bit about improving your character and leveling up. So let's jump into rules. So it's a game of risk-taking, constant dread, and dash of boredom coupled with stress, sheer violence, bright moments, and casual brutality. Sounds right up my alley. Love the art. Again, very sci-fi theme. So you'll have attribute checks. We talked about that. And you need to get a 20 or higher. Skill checks is roughly the same. And there might be some non-skill checks, opposed checks, advantage and disadvantage, and then difficulty levels. So there's a mechanism for increasing the difficulties, critical success and failures. And you will have to track gear. So you have a total of 15 GS or gear slots. So that's how encumbrance is handled in the game. You can have, obviously, you can wield weapons one or two hands. You have pockets, and then combat. So there is a detailed combat system here. So you might use stealth if you want, and there are different reactions. You have setup combat. There's a grid system, but there's also an alternative system if you don't want to get into combat grids. So sequence, PCs spend stamina first, so they start. You have movement. All combatants can move once per round, and you're trying to deal high enough damage to bypass the target's con. PCs receive wounds. You have to roll on the injuries table. So here is a example combat grid. And there's also cover, and I love this. I've seen this in other, obviously we have this in other games for Blackoath Entertainment, but there are examples of how to place cover on the map. So you could roll on this and do random cover with a D20, which is really cool. And then placing characters in the combat grid. So again, you can roll a D4 to determine where to place characters, whether or not they're surprise. And initiative, you're going to be using a D10. Stamina, so all PCs have a beginning stamina of 10, and there's different stamina costs for different actions. So there's optional rules, so it's great. You can start with the base rules to get your feet wet, and there's optional rules around things like combat stances, which will give you bonuses to initiative, attack, defense, or it might give you maybe hindrances as well. I'm not sure. Different conditions apply to combatants. So combat resolution, again, detailed system here on the attacks and defending and getting knocked down. Combat resolution, hit location. So there is different damage modifiers depending on where you hit and also the type of creature you're attacking. Defensive maneuvers and armor, and there's examples of combat. Line of sight and even thrown explosives, which is cool, areas of effect. And I'll show you some examples shortly of how these area effects work. So there's some examples in the book here of like rows, blast, explosions, and bursts. Critical hits and misses. So there are tables, of course, on what those mean. Suppressive fire. So you can also wield, if you wield a fully automatic weapon, you can spend stamina to basically distract your enemies. Desperate attack, disengaging, escaping, combat examples. So go through this to get a better, more detailed feel of how it works. And there's also optional rules around random combat events if you want to spice things up. Lingering damage, another optional rule. All right, wounds, healing, and death. During combat, every time you receive a non-fatal wound, you suffer a cumulative -2 to all actions. So you can't take much wounds in this game. You can treat wounds and deal with wounds in and out of combat. You might get an injury and you roll on the injury table. There's critical injuries that are more lasting. Cut nose, the character lost their nose, -5 charisma. And this is another option for people who don't want to deal with combat grids, zone-based combat. So there's a whole section covering a description of how to deal with zones in combat and stealth and being cautious. and conditions. So there's a number of conditions you might encounter with various effects. Parasitic infection, so very thematic to the game. Radiation, poison, so radiation exposure, vacuum exposure, so very unique to this game versus others you might see. And then stress, the pressures of diving could get to you, and there's a list of detailed times you're guaranteed to earn stress. There's consequences of stress based on how much stress you have, stress reaction, and obsessions. When a character has accumulated 20 stress, then you kind of freak out, for lack of a better word, and develop some obsessions. You might lash out. You can lose stress, incur trauma, and those have, it looks like, negative traits associated with them. Hacking. So all the tech you can hack. See, characters with the hacking talent may attempt to hack a system. That's cool. Emotions. So there's an emotional matrix that will, I assume, come with various bonuses and hindrances. So you start composed, but you'll move up and down on the matrix. All right, let's see. Playing the game. So we'll run through this a bit. Standard gameplay structure. So you report to Karum Station, and that's mission control, and that's usually like a day, 24 hours before launch. There are 3 starships. A crew can choose either a known destination or unknown, and there are 2 scenarios that come with the game, and I'll just show them briefly. And you're going to be exploring and then finally returning to the station. There are pre and post mission activities, scheduling a mission, choosing the right spaceship model. Interesting. So you will have to determine, it looks like, the type of spaceship, and here are the 3 different types of spaceships, and it tells you a little bit about each one. You can pick a name with this for your spaceship: traveling to a known destination, traveling to an unknown. Look at that image. Isn't that awesome? Love it. You have to choose supplies. So again, you have a limited number of supplies, but you're going to have to choose supplies. Voyage through the black. Reaching destination, there's random travel events. So like most of Alex T's games, there's a lot of detail on exploration and travel, which is awesome. Consequences of missed jumps. Arriving at the expedition site. So after weeks of travel, there's a D100 roll regarding what happens on the arrival, tracking time, rationing, site time. Look at all this detail. Generating the expedition site. Wow, random site names. Look at all this. And numeric designations. Love that. Main site purpose. When first determining the site detail, you roll on the site's original purpose table. So here are all the numbers. And I know I'm flipping fast, but it's such a massive game that I want to just flip through as much as I can. Dominant site hazards. That's cool. Psychic disturbances, site areas, site expedition reports. Man, look at all this. Encounters. So different stages of difficulty. You can use a D20. That's an amazing art image. Resources, data crystal, alloy cubes, scavenging alien technologies. Should I even try to pronounce that? Xenoanthropological, I think, artifacts. That's cool. Keep saying cool. That's amazing. Site hazard manifestations, locked access points. So the point is, it is fully fleshed out. Dread events. I mean, come on. Automatic security measures, fixed events. And this is all within the running the game, random occurrences. So you can make this game however detailed you want. Taking a break, site exploration. Wow. Planetary details. So we're still biomes, different types of biomes. Look at all this. What a phenomenal structure here. Exploration tables. Barren sites, barren hazards, exotic, frozen, irradiated. I'm just flipping through these a bit more since we are about halfway through, I think, at least. And I'll try to cut it before 30 minutes. All right, running the game. So there is a very large section on running the games, game master emulation, story arcs, action tables. But I'm going to jump into the antagonists to keep this going a bit and let you explore the running the game section. So there's all kinds of different antagonists. And you're going to, when you first face an encounter result on the site exploration, you need to determine what you run into. So there's different creatures, variety of creatures and encounters. There's easy creatures, standard, elite. So different modifications that you'll have, and it depends also on how many members do you have in your crew. It looks like 3-member, 5-member encounters, so very specific to your size. So here there's creature types: guardians, aberrations, synthetic, local fauna, different sizes, tells you about their movement, territory control, predation, destruction, parasitization, and defining a creature's intelligence, which is optional if you want to go that deep. So it does give you detail on generating an antagonist stat block. So you can see the stat block's going to have a lot of similar characteristics as your own, and different for elite and what have you. Defining the enemy role, it may be a brute, lurker, range, swarm, or psychic. And again, there's different modifications to each of these, as well as behaviors. And you can roll on a behavior, which is great. It gives you a lot of variety when you are engaged with these various entities. Adding unique traits, which you can do. And again, it gives them more plus and minuses, and just a lot more ways to customize the enemy, which is always fun. Even appearance, if you want to get into the detail of their appearance, random creature name. And you can use the syllables to generate the name. Guardian models have been cataloged, and I think there's more detail on them. So here you go. Here are some of the guardians specific to the game, and a lot of detail around each one. A lot of flavor description, as well as different stat blocks depending on if they're easy, standard, elite, or overwhelming. Look at this art. Awesome. Known threats. So again, there's another whole section on known threats. A spitter and combat behavior. Again, there's a D10. So very, very, very much a lot of flavor around combat and a lot of variability is what I was trying to say. Look at all these. Magnetic tech, enemy morale, so they could be demoralized. And then we get into Karum Station. So there's again an entire section about the background of the station. So in the year 2078, Drake Industries bought the full exploitation rights for 126955 2083 RQ45. Bit of background on Drake Industry, more on the history, human technology, overview of the station, life at the station, security, downtime activities. So again, you can really carousing. Look at that D100. I think it was a D100 table. But so much detail around the station that you can get into, the background, the history, the downtime as much as you want, which I think is amazing. The asteroid medical center. So there's a bunch of different sections, random NPCs, gear. So a lot of discussion on gear availability while you're at the station. And you'll get into all your weapons, weapon traits. So different types of, I love the improvised weapon. Looks like a pipe from a station, stun baton. So this is going to be unique and different than what you're used to in most games. A lot of pistols. That's awesome. SMGs, shotguns. Yeah, all kind. The weapon selection is very diverse and very cool. Armor and gear. So all kinds of different suits with different costs and the amount of gear slots it takes and background on it. Experimental gear, biomechanical augmentations, strain. So wow, a number of different augmentations. So the last thing we're going to get into before we call it is the scenarios. And I'm just going to briefly, there are 2 scenarios is the point that are fully fleshed out. One is Reigns of Philonis. So it gives you kind of the detail of where you are, the locations, random tables to make it a little more unique, vegetation. So that's all background, and then talks a bit about leaving the city and timelines. And then you get into the bestiary and what's going to happen. Same thing for scenario 2, Archive of the Mines. A lot of background. So there's several pages as I'm flipping through here, different rooms you're going to encounter. And yeah, so 2 fully fleshed out scenarios for you. So look, I know I went really, really quick, and It's hard to do this justice, but check out Across a Thousand Dead Worlds, and you can find it. Let me pull that up briefly. You can find it at Drive Through RPG, which it is still not showing. So give me 1 second. There we go. So here it is on Drive Through RPG. The PDF is $20 currently, but you can also get the soft cover book, you can get the premium book, and you can get the PDF and soft cover at a combined rate of 76. But if the PDF works for you, great. But man, this is one I think I'd like to own the book for. So hope you all enjoyed, and hope you check out Across a Thousand Dead Worlds. Last thing I would say is join Alex T's, check out his Discord, and we'll put links to that. His Discord. He also has a Patreon. On the Discord, there are a lot of tools that have been created. There's a Foundry module that was fan created. There's also a companion app that was created by someone on the forum. So check those out as well. A lot of support for Across a Thousand Dead Worlds. Thanks, everyone. Until next time.